Top tips for a great morning routine. Set an early alarm. Don't hit that snooze button. Avoid all screen time in the morning. Just jump straight out of bed. Make your bed first thing. This sets you up for the day. Ah, perfect. Have a cold shower and brush your teeth. Change into something fresh so you're ready for the day ahead. Start your day with a healthy breakfast. Avoid drinking too much caffeine. I'm eating it. Remember to work out with some stretches, sit-ups, also some dips and crunches. There! Now you're ready to begin a productive day.
Boys and girls, I think I'm gonna have to brush up on my morning routine. Okay, so this week we're gonna sing our new song, which is called Happy Day, and it's about the greatest event in history when God sent his son Jesus into the world to take on the punishment of our sin so that if we trust in him, we can be forgiven. God has done what we could never do. He has done the impossible and we can be set free. Isn't that amazing? Well, let's sing this song called Happy Day.
Day in history, death is beaten, you have rescued me. Sing it out, Jesus is alive. The empty cross, the empty grave, life eternal, you have won the day. Shout it out, Jesus is alive. He's alive. Jesus, you are mine. Endless joy, perfect peace, every pain finally will cease. Celebrate, Jesus is alive. Shout it out, he's alive. And oh, happy day, you washed my sin away.
done, boys and girls. Brilliant singing. Now remember that last week we heard some of the story of Elijah, where God had given Elijah food through some ravens. Well, this week we're going to hear more of the story of Elijah, and Glenn is going to tell us that story. So, over to you, Glenn.
Hi guys, let me just ask you a question. You ever had to do something which just feels impossible? Maybe it's a jigsaw and you can't get all the bits fitting in the right place. Or maybe it's a Rubik's Cube and you're twisting and turning, you're struggling to get all the colours on the right sides. Or maybe it's a big ball of string which is all tangled up. And there's loads of knots and it's all wound up and you end up just giving up and throwing it away. Well, today we're going to look at an impossible task which God set a man called King Ahab. Now, if you remember last week, we were looking at a man called Elijah, and Elijah went and told King Ahab that there was going to be a famine, there was going to be no rain. And 3 years later, Elijah returns to meet King Ahab. And King Ahab was angry because he blamed Elijah for this mess. And yet, this wasn't Elijah's fault, this was Ahab's fault. And the reason why it was Ahab's fault was because he didn't believe in God. He didn't worship God. He worshipped another god called Baal. And this Baal is just a giant statue. And through Elijah, God was going to show, not just Ahab, but everybody else, that Baal is just a statue. So this is how it's going to happen. Each person will build an altar, and on this altar they're going to put a sacrifice. And then afterwards, they will pray to their gods, and if their God hears them and answers their prayers, they will set fire to the altar. So the next day, Elijah meets Baal's prophets on top of Mount Carmel. And on top of Mount Carmel, they will build their altars. And Baal's prophets will go first. They build the altar, they put the sacrifice on, and they prayed all morning, Baal, answer us. But nothing. So they danced about and they shout all day, and
7 hours later.
this just nothing happened. And it's now night time after all this commotion. And so it's Elijah's turn. Elijah builds the altar and he puts the sacrifice on top, but he asks for 12 giant pots of water to cover the altar. Now, let me ask you a question, boys and girls. What does a fireman use to put out fires? Water! So, if something's covered in water, it's not going to burn, is it? Also, this is all the water they have left. So this has to work. And Elijah then prays to God and says these words. Lord, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, today let it be known that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and that at your word I have done all these things. Answer me, Lord. Answer me so that this people will know that you, the Lord, are God, and that you have turned their hearts back. Well, immediately fire fell from the sky. It burned the altar. The sacrifice was gone. Everything was burnt up. And God had answered Elijah's prayer. Elijah then told the people to take Baal's prophets and send them away, get rid of them, they'll never be seen again. And then afterwards, it started raining. Wasn't that a great story, boys and girls? It's very dramatic, I think. Well, it reminds me of another impossible task that we can't do, but only God can do. You see, the Bible tells us that we are all sinners. That means we have done bad things. And because we have done bad things, it means that we cannot get close to God. We cannot follow God because we are sinners. You see, it's impossible for us even to save ourselves from our sin. And so God had a plan. God would send his Son, Jesus, to die for our sins. You see, back then, if someone had to pay for their sins, they would make a sacrifice. But that sacrifice wouldn't be enough. You see, you can make hundreds and hundreds of sacrifices, but they would never pay for all of your sin. You see, only one person was good enough to pay the price for our sin, and that's God's only Son. And that's why Jesus came to this earth. You see, he was the only person who could save us. And Jesus loved us so much that he came down here to die on the cross for our sins. So I wonder how you feel about all that. Now, if you feel like there's nothing that you can do, that you're overwhelmed, all you need to do is just pray to God and say these things. You say, God, I'm sorry that I have done bad things against you. I'm sorry that I have sinned. But God, I thank you for sending your Son Jesus to die on the cross for my sins. God, I thank you that these things are done, and that by believing in him, that I can be saved. And that's it. If you put your trust in Jesus, if you believe in him, you have faith in him, you will be saved. It's an impossible task, but only God can do it. And God has done it. Isn't that amazing, boys and girls? Well, thank you for listening very well. Tune in next week to see what will happen next to Elijah. Bye, guys.
Super listening, boys and girls, well done. Now, if you enjoyed this week's video, why not click on last week's video to see more of the same? And until next week, bye boys and girls.